Moving on with indirect effects, this was first mentioned in a case called Van Colson. And in indirect effects, this is the principle whereby member states have a duty to interpret all national laws in conformity with EU law. So there can't be any deviations, there can't be any inconsistencies with EU law, because if there are, that will create problems if an EU citizen wants to enforce his rights in real life or in court. That causes a problem, especially for people in European countries, because their allegiances are now being split. On the one hand, they're a European citizen, and they're being told that you can enforce European law directly as a union citizen. On the other hand, they're also a citizen of their member state, and the member state has much more control. And so having this divide will inevitably cause a lot of problems. So this principle is there to stop that. Like I said, an example is that France cannot pass national legislation which is going to contradict laws that are passed by the EU. And in fact, this will apply to legislation already enacted by France even before, say, for example, it joined the EU. So let's say French legislation was passed which contradicts EU legislation, but this was before France joined the EU. Let's say it has a law from 1786. This law would also be subject to the requirement, because the idea is that member state governments cannot rely on any laws which would directly conflict with the EU as long as they are a member of the EU. And so what it would require in theory is France to repeal the outdated or old legislation and replace it with new European Union legislation, which is consistent and up to date. In practice, this can be quite problematic. And the reason it's problematic is because what you're essentially saying is that French legislation should conform to EU legislation and not the other way around. And so this can be problematic in terms of sovereignty. Unfortunately, you can't run an organization when each country is passing its own laws and contradicting one another. All in all, the aim of the principle is just to ensure consistency between EU and domestic law, so that a European Union citizen, such as someone from Slovakia or Romania, can happily travel to the Netherlands or to France and know that the laws are fairly consistent on the EU level and that some weird domestic regulation isn't going to scupper all their plans.